are very nearly at the end of 2018, and I think that it is fair to say that this year has been incredibly hectic for Doctor Who, both in the TV show as well as in the audio drama format. We've welcomed in a brand new era with a brand new incarnation of the Doctor, and we've also seen a plethora of many Doctor Who Big Finish audio adventures sprouting from many different eras of the show's history. And today I'm going to be taking a look at my final release for this year, in fact the 12th release from the Doctor Who Big Finish main range, and it is the 6th Doctor story, The Hunting Ground, as written by A.K. Benedict, which is a lovely way to end off this year's audio adventure releases. This is of course the second release for December 2018. Previously this month I have already reviewed the 7th Doctor story Muse of Fire, featuring the 7th Doctor, Hex and Ace, along with Iris Wildthyme in there as well. Arguing because Muse of Fire was a lovely, really fun romp drama release, and this one is a lovely way to end out the year, with once again the 6th Doctor bounding into a situation and absolutely owning the entire story. And I think that A.K. Benedict is an absolutely inspired choice to in fact write for a 6th Doctor adventure. So first off, and as always in the description below, I will leave the link to go and buy this release from the Big Finish website. It is currently out now at the physical CD price of $14.99 and the download is $12.99. It is currently exclusive to the Big Finish website up until January 2019. At the very end of that month it will of course be available from other retailers such as Amazon and Forbidden Planet. And of course naturally, if you like what I in fact say throughout this review, you can also check out the trailer on the Big Finish website along with the casting information and story details to learn a little bit more about the story itself. The episode is in fact written by A.K. Benedict. She's done a few Doctor Who audio adventures in the past, mainly from the extended universe of the spin-offs. I do know that I think last year she did the Worlds Apart story, which was a 2-part episode with the 7th Doctor, Ace and Hex once again. This episode is in fact her first attempt at a 4-part Big Finish main range episode, and it is really lovely to see her expanding out to that format. And I must say, I will come on to her writing technique in a little bit, but it did certainly work very well for this story. The actual episode itself is directed by John Ainsworth, and I must say that once again he did an incredible job. I love the way that this story is in fact directed. I think that all the different choices that have been made, including the different characters that you meet along the way, and the way the actual episode sounds is wonderful. I think that I was incredibly hooked with this story from the very first episode, which is something that you do need to expect from the Big Finish main range. Really, if the first episode doesn't really settle with you, it can be a little bit of a drag, but I am happy that with this episode I was in there straight away, loving it, really engrossed in all of the different characters as well as the location itself. The episode is also produced by John Ainsworth, the script editor is Alan Barnes, and the executive producers as per usual are Jason Haigh Ellery and Nicholas Briggs. I think that generally for the production value, as I was saying, this episode is a really good one, and the actual music for this story as well. The sound design and music itself was composed by Steve Foxton, and this is possibly some of the best actual cinematic music once again that I've heard for quite a while when it comes to a Big Finish main range adventure. It is very much like the actual location of the story, very cold, and it almost reminded me of the music score from Stranger Things. If you've actually seen that series, you'll of course know exactly what I'm getting at, but the music that was used for the Upside Down, which for those of you that haven't seen that series is basically a parallel universe to some extent of the real universe itself, and is kind of a darker reflection, and the music for this story kind of reminded me of that, which I did really like. It really nicely balanced out with the actual location, as I say, and really made this episode sound good. So now moving on to the characters for this episode, starting off with the best place I think to start for this story. Of course the 6th Doctor, as played as always by the wonderful Colin Baker, and it is lovely to start with having an adventure with the 6th Doctor to in fact end out this year. And I think that it is another episode where he is essentially travelling alone, much like how he had in Hour of the Cybermen, Iron Bright, but each episode we've had a new, almost temporary companion for that story. For example, in Hour of the Cybermen we had Daniel Hopkins in there, the unit soldier. Then we had in Iron Bright, rather brilliantly, we had Ozimbard Kingdom Brunel, and this episode we get introduced to another character which I will come on to in a little bit, but A.K. Benedict actually makes the 6th Doctor brilliantly stand out. This is possibly some of the best writing that I've seen for Sixie in a very long time. He is a character of personality that is filled with arrogance, but you love him at the same time. He always needs to have the last word. He is loud, he is brilliant, but really, really lovable, and he is a Doctor that is incredibly quirky, and that is something that is seen quite a lot within the very first 25 minutes. I think that this is something, in fact, the episode that I've laughed the most at in a very long time, simply because the Sixth Doctor is so alien and different and doesn't fit in with the scenario. However, you know at the same time, he is an incredibly intelligent man, and he can basically make professionals in a certain field feel like that they don't know absolutely anything. Colin just performs excellently as the Doctor, and this is possibly some of his best acting in quite a few releases. I really did enjoy it, and if you are looking for a story to give the Sixth Doctor some justice, then this is certainly one for you, because he is just on top form. He is on fire, not literally, but he is amazing. Then moving on to the character who I suppose is almost the companion for this story, we have Amy Beth Hayes, who is playing Yrsa Kristjansdottir, which she is an Icelandic person, of course, because the story is set within Iceland, and she is such a brilliant character. Once again, you naturally get introduced to her in her actual field of where she works. She is essentially a police inspector slash police officer. She has some personal involvement in the story, because some years ago you in fact find out that her father disappeared in mysterious circumstances for his body to then be found with his tears literally frozen to his face. It is a rather gruesome image. However, I think that Beth Hayes really nicely performs throughout this story, and her interactions with the Sixth Doctor throughout this episode are wonderful. I think that they bounce off each other incredibly well. I think that it is clear that she kind of doesn't like the Doctor to begin with. She knows that he is loud, however she knows at the same time that he knows exactly what he is saying. He has point around his explanations, and he knows exactly what he is going to do next. He is always one step above everybody, and I think that Yrsa kind of likes that. She likes that control figure, she likes somebody who is a leader, but also at the same time you respect Yrsa as a person. She's independent, she is strong, she has gone through a lot, and this story is really personal to her, and it's actually the first episode in quite a long time where I've basically had my fingers crossed throughout the last act, hoping that the Doctor does that one line where he turns to her and says, "Do you want to come with me?" And at the very end of this story, I think that it is no spoiler to say, we have the Doctor almost suggesting, would you like to go on a little bit of a walk with me into the Icelandic woods? And it kind of leaves it open there to maybe having some possible adventures in the future. And I am hoping, please Big Finish, make her the new Sixth Doctor companion, because Sixie has had so many companions over the years. We've had Flip, we've had Mel, we've had Perry, we've had Frobisher, we've had Evelyn, and then we could have a new one to join the TARDIS team as well, and more the better. I think that Yrsa offers something from her background and her personality that is much different to the other companions that we've seen rather recently, such as Constance and such as Flip. She has such a variety compared to those, and to be honest, having another female on board the TARDIS with Sixie is certainly something that he needs right now, considering that he's not had a few companions for the previous few stories. Talking about the actual alien for this episode as well, we have Michael Griffiths playing the Hunter, who is the rather unusual looking ice creature that you see on the very front of this episode. And in summary, he's basically an alien hunter character who wants to go to a certain location on a certain planet and kill a certain prey. He's basically somebody that essentially likes fox hunting or animal hunting, much like how some humans do. However, he wants to go to a certain planet, and he's basically ordered a package deal in order to go out and kill something. And it is a rather gruesome concept, but it is essentially hunting on a much larger interplanetary scale, and I will come on to that part of the narrative later on in this review. However, I do like the Hunter. He is an interesting character, and I think that it may be nice to see a bit more development with him, because you don't in fact know much about his species, you just know that he is meant to be in cold conditions. And funny enough, he actually reminded me a little bit of Tim Shaw from Doctor Who Series 11. However, even then, the Hunter in this story had more threat behind him than Tim Shaw did, simply because he just had a presence that was different. I think that Michael Griffiths certainly performs that really nicely. He did also play Christian in this story as well, who is the father of the companion for the episode, of course, Yrsa. He is in fact used in a flashback scene in the early half of this story that is, funny enough, at New Year, which is a really nice timing considering that this release is coming out at the end of the year. Perhaps this is a 6th Doctor New Year's Eve special, which will be lovely. And moving on to the other characters for this episode very quickly, we have Harriet Collins, who plays Frida. She's a nice character, kind of untrustworthy and different at the same time, but acted rather nicely. Margaret Ashley, who plays Ingrid. Malcolm James, who plays Sigdor, who is this rather greasy kind of politician kind of figure that does naturally feel very corrupt from the very first scene that you in fact meet him in. Richard Reed, who plays a constable character that is really funny, and I really like him. He's a warm character to start off the episode, and you don't really get to know much about him throughout the story, but he's a nice set dressing. You know just as much about him to almost care about his character. Then to finish off the story, you also have a rather wonderful alien creature who is the Marthix, also known as the Left Marthic, who is played by Joe Jameson, and then you have the Right Marthic, who is played by Will Hislop, who is in fact the son of Ian Hislop from Have I Got News For You, and they basically play a two-headed creature with different personalities, which once again, really funny creature, brilliant sort of scenes with the 6th Doctor. There's again, throw lines off each other incredibly well. The story just has absolutely loads of laughs from those characters, as well as the companion, as well as the 6th Doctor, making it really, really enjoyable. Moving on to the actual narrative of the episode itself, basically as a little bit of context, A.K. Benedict is a crime novelist. Therefore, it makes perfect sense for her Doctor Who story debut for the monthly range in the full 4-part format to in fact be a Doctor Who does Icelandic crime investigation adventure where somebody has died in mysterious circumstances and the Doctor needs to figure out why and how and what is the mysterious goings on around this Icelandic village. It makes perfect sense. She may as well play to her strengths, and I think that is very much shown in this story. It pretty much has all of the character traits that you would expect from a Doctor Who does crime-based story. It keeps you guessing all the way throughout. You wonder because you have the Doctor seeing this dead body to start with, and the actual episode itself starts off with the constable and the inspectors going to see this dead body, and then the episode unfolds, you find out what is going on. And I think that maybe one of the flaws of this episode is that it did in fact reveal the enemy quite early on in the episode. It is without a doubt that you know exactly who the murderer is. However, throughout the actual episode you find out a little bit more about them. There isn't really too much interaction with the actual character, and they are almost shrouded in personal mystery. However, you know that they did in fact commit the crime itself. Therefore, it may have been nice to make a few culprits here and there. You do originally think that it is an inside job and the people are part of the police station have some involvement within the crime itself, which I suppose may be true to some extent. I will leave you to find out that if you go on to buy this actual release. However, it is obvious that the main monster villain is the actual person behind the murders themselves, which I think it may have been nice to have a few additional revelations in there. There was a few shock horrors in the final act of this actual story that I did wonder if the companion Yrsa was going to get out alive, and by that point I really did care about her, and it was the moment that I realised I really want her to travel with the 6th Doctor, simply because both of them went off and did their own things. The Doctor went off to another planet to try and catch up with the Hunter, and then that's where he met the Marthix for the first time. Meanwhile, Yrsa was in fact on Earth trying to get more information together about her dead father from a few years ago and also solve the actual crime itself, meaning that both of them have something to do, and that it can constantly hop from those two different locations, from outer space to Iceland, within one story, meaning that the listener is constantly engrossed in what is going on. And it is unusual because one of my only major complaints for this story is I wanted more, which is a very rare thing for the Doctor Who Big Finish main range. Normally these episodes are around 2 hours long. However, I found that with this story it was in fact a little bit shorter. Some of the individual episodes came to around the running time, I think, of 20 minutes, maybe 25, something like that, but it did feel incredibly quick, really fast paced, but also at the same time really easy to follow because you care about the actual characters. So much like Muse of Fire in some ways, I do in fact really recommend this to a new listener that wants to get into classic series Doctor Who, but also at the same time do be warned that this story is a bit more quicker paced and a slightly smaller running time than those other adventures from the main range that have came out this year. And yeah, it may have been nice to have a few more longer scenes in there just to give the alien a little bit more development and find out what is going on, because maybe the climax of the actual story itself did in fact end quite quickly, and some of the mysteries almost ended quite quickly as well. It moved on to the next part of the plot and the next, so it did always keep you guessing, so it may have been nice to have some of those guesses maybe spread out just a little bit longer. As we do have 2 releases for the Doctor Who Big Finish main range this month, it really has made me realise, because I am filming 2 reviews within 1 week, and I can fully remember pretty much everything that I said in the Muse of Fire review, and I did recommend that story to the new listener. However, once actually listening to this episode, I think that this one is a lot more stronger, both in the actual characters itself, but also the narrative. I think that this story is pretty much some of the best that you can actually get from the Big Finish main range, and since I've actually started reviewing them, I do believe around 2016 onwards, this is possibly some of the strongest storytelling from the main range that I've seen over this 3-year period, which I do think in fact means quite a lot. And now we're going to move back on to the 6th Doctor, because there is literally so many moments in this story that made me burst out laughing. To start off with, the Doctor has a little communicator device that he can in fact talk to dogs, and in this story we meet some rather alien looking wolves that in fact have metal teeth and they can basically rip you apart. We don't really see too much of them throughout the actual story itself. It would have been nice to maybe see a bit more of them. However, Colin decides, or Sixie even, decides to talk down these evil werewolves that are howling and growling, trying to essentially kill them all, by using this little device and talking into it, and then out the other side hops some dog howls in sort of the way that he is speaking in that language, and you just have some excellent moments, and Sixie is there rubbing these like vicious dogs like they are literally a friendly little Jack Russell like mine that I've got back at home, and it did actually make me miss them quite a lot, not gonna lie, but I thought that was wonderful. And then also you had the 6th Doctor walking into the police station in the early half of this story, and whilst he is pretty much in custody because he is a suspect for killing the person that you find in the early half of this story, the murder victim, he in fact fixes a printer, but he doesn't just fix it, of course he doesn't, he's the Doctor, and he's the 6th Doctor in particular. He decides to make the printer sing. At the end of this story, I was wanting the humanoid singing printer to become a companion as well, because I'm sure that Frobisher would have absolutely loved that, travelling with the Doctor at the same time. He's just so funny and different, and I just think, I love him, because I think that this Doctor is so different from that 6th Doctor that you see within the TV show itself, but you can also tell that that character was underneath the surface. He is so warm, he is so lovable, and basically every single character that he meets throughout the actual story, I think kind of has a soft spot for him. I think especially Yrsa, I think that she's a wonderful character as well at the same time, and Beth Hayes does a great job with her, and she has some really strong and independent scenes, and the way that they bounce off each other, as I say, in that relationship, you could see that the 6th Doctor actually cared quite a lot for Yrsa. When he went off to that other planet and then came back, he wanted to come back particularly to see her and actually make sure that she is okay. And as well, the fact that she is basically, her first adventure with the Doctor is coming face to face with the villain that basically killed her father. It is a strong opener, and it's basically a sign that it can only get better from here. So I think that it is a very obvious opportunity for Doctor Who and Big Finish to take on this chance and actually make Yrsa the next companion. And the fact that she's from Iceland as well, yes it is still on Earth, yes it is still a modern day companion, but the sheer fact that she's from a cold climate such as Iceland makes her a little bit different, had a different upbringing with different beliefs, such as the idea of gremlins and goblins and werewolves that live in the forest. It's all those little customs and things that you don't get from a companion that you would normally get from, say, modern day England or modern day America. So overall, that is that for my review of the 6th Doctor story, The Hunting Ground, the final release from the Doctor Who Big Finish main range for this year. And to be quite honest, I don't actually think I could have chosen a better story to end off this year of Big Finish reviews. I think that this story is incredibly strong and different, has a really interesting villain, but also at the same time offers something that is rather unique and really enjoyable, and something that, as I say, really do recommend to those new listeners, but also at the same time I recommend to those 6th Doctor fans and people that want to experience more classic series Doctor Who adventures. So that is that for this review, and that is that for the Big Finish reviews for 2018. I really hope that you have enjoyed them, and I hope that if you have enjoyed this video you may go back and listen and watch some of the previous reviews that I have done. And I guess stay tuned for more Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama reviews for 2019. It is of course going to be a rather busy year. It is Big Finish's 20th anniversary and there is a lot planned, so the only way is up for here. Most notably, hopefully, a few 6th Doctor adventures and maybe the return of Frobisher, considering that it's the 20th anniversary. I can hope. Come on, New Year's resolution, bring back Frobisher. Come on, Big Finish, you can do it. Please, I'm begging you. Thank you very much for watching this review, considering that this may in fact be one of the last to go out before New Year. In case it is, I would just like to wish you all a very happy New Year. I wish you all the very best for 2019, and I also hope that 2018 has been kind to you, and I generally hope that your Christmas period has been relaxing and you can just chill out for a few weeks, which I think by this point in the year we deserve a little bit of a rest. Absolutely everybody does. So thanks for watching, stay safe, and I shall see you all in more Doctor Who content, as always, in the near future. Bye for now.